Alright, we are recording for chapter, 3 of, well, I mean, technically it's Wrath of Khan, but it's all part of the trilogy here. Trilogy of novelizations. I like the chapter. It is a bit long. You potentially could cut it in two pieces, with the first piece being set on Study Alpha 5, which that finally gets explained. Then the second, around Earth, because it's the actual the inspection tour that Admiral Kirk gives the Enterprise before they leave. But yeah, so we are on Steady Alpha 5. They think it's Steady Alpha 6 for the time being. Tyrell is trying to get out of the situation by being like, oh yes, we're here looking for survivors. We're here as a rescue party. That's exactly what we're doing here. I'm sorry, even without knowing it's Khan, it still's... Don't lie. Just be like, we had no idea there were people here. But we'll happily take you from here if you want to leave. I mean, of course we will do that. No. And Chekhov is just silent, because it's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. The whole thing is just that's all it is in his mind. And there's also, when he does get to talking, the grammar is wrong, and he's like not having full words there because, as was mentioned in the previous chapter, he forgets his standard, his English, whenever he is terrified. And he is, because he knows exactly what's coming. Well, he knows it's Khan. We also get, it was 15 years ago from the Space Seed, so that puts this at about 7 years after the motion picture, which does seem a little odd, but it does make some sense, because the motion picture was supposed to be set 3 years after the... 5 years after the end of the original series. 3 years after the end of the 5-year mission, but we didn't get those last 2 years. That's when it's supposed to be set, but it was actually a decade after the series went off the air, I think is what I had just seen, because I was looking at trivia for the motion picture. Wrath of Khan, however, it's probably, okay, no, we're just going up to real time for the actors' ages. So that, so 7 years since motion picture end. Okay. Yeah, and Khan's appearance. The man had changed. He appeared far more than 15 years older. His long hair was now white, streaked with iron gray. But the aura of power and self-assurance was undiminished. The changes meant nothing. Chekhov recognized him instantly. Which, by the way, for anyone that... what was it? I think it is... Oh man, why am I blanking on his name? I am so sorry for that. The actor who plays Chekhov. It's just... Hang on. Is it still on here? It is. Walter Koenig. That's it. Or is it Koenig? Either way. He... It does have an answer. I think it's him and not Montalban. Because he isn't in the episode of the Space Seed, and technically Chekhov's character doesn't even appear that season. He was hired for the second season. So, like, how does Khan recognize him? And the explanation that he'll just prat off when anyone asks about this is that he was at one of the latrines, and Khan was, like, in desperate need of it, and when he finally, like, opened up the door, Khan, like, grabbed him and was like, I never forget a face. And just... completely silly answer, but yeah. But to explain how he could know him. But it's not only that. There's also Chekhov knew... crap. The lieutenant, or whatever her rank was, is the woman who left with him to be his wife. I'll come to it. But apparently Chekhov had like crossed paths with her, and the way it is written almost makes it sound like he had fallen in love with her despite being younger and all that. But it could also just be that he admired her, that he looked up to her. And so her choosing to go with Khan was so unusual, unexpected to him that he actually cried some from her loss. But in any case, we'll get her name is mentioned later. Yeah, I remember you, Mr. Chekhov. I never hope to see you again. And we eventually get Chekhov. Who is this man? Tyrell tried vainly to reassert some authority. Okay, to be fair, Khan would probably respect somebody trying to act with authority around him, so long as it is never authority over him. And this is, we get an example of Chekhov having difficulty speaking in standard. He was experiment captain and criminal. Though he feared angering Khan, he could think of no other way and no satisfactory way at all to describe him. He's from 20th century. And then it even describes he was an experiment, a noble dream gone wrong. Genetic engineering had enhanced his vast intelligence. Nature had conveyed upon him great presence and charisma. What had caused his overwhelming need for power, Pavel Chekhov did not know. We then do get the user in a position to demand nothing. I, on the other hand, am in a position to grant nothing. I'm just going to read that flat because Montalban's performance for some of these lines is perfect. I cannot see it being done any better. There is a lot more talking of Khan in here, which is both good and bad. Some of the lines I really like. Some of it does diminish his menace. But he is, at times, still quite menacing. Yeah, so, and can hear Montalban's voice as well. Save your strength, Captain. They have been sworn to me and I to them since 200 years before you were born. We owe each other our lives. My dear Miss Chekhov, do you mean you never told him the tale? Do you mean James Kirk never amused you? He's facing Tyrell now. By telling you the story of how he rescued my ship and its company from the cryogenic prison of deep space. He never made sport of us in public. Captain, I'm touched. So there's a grain of, well, it's not really just grain, of narcissism for Khan here. There's like, how would anyone forget me? But also, was Kirk not talking about me all the time? We finally get some answer as to what the hell happened with the planets, though. Because they were dropped off on SETI Alpha 5, not SETI Alpha 6. But the line came in, it's like, this is SETI Alpha 6. I saw the world we left you on. It was beautiful. It was like a garden, flowers, fruits, trees, streams, and its moon. This is where I actually have to highlight. Chekhov remembered the moon most clearly, an enormous silver globe hanging over the land, 10 times the size of the moon on Earth. The moon of Earth, technically, but anyhow. For Captain Kirk had left Khan and his followers on one of a pair of worlds, a twin system in which planet and satellite were of a size. But one was living, the other lifeless. So they're actually describing a binary planet system, which technically that's what Pluto and Charon would be. Yeah, so then this is where now Chekhov is understanding. And there's also some explanation from Khan as well that... Do I have that highlighted? Okay, yeah. I'll just read the highlighting. Alpha SETI 6, SETI Alpha 6. Our beautiful moon. You did not survey that, did you, Mr. Chekhov? You never bothered to note its tectonic instability. It exploded, Mr. Chekhov. It exploded. It laid waste to our planet. I enabled us to survive. I with nothing to work with but the trivial contents of these cargo holds. So, I got two problems with this. One is the more technical, planets don't just explode. Okay, that's not a thing. There's that. I can easily set that aside, suspension of disbelief, fine. There's another where it's like, Vonda, how did they not realize that the binary planet was gone? I'm sorry, but it's just you had a probe that was new enough, and it does also kind of explain why Chekhov not seeing the binary planet system. That's why it didn't trigger in his mind. But still, is how do you not? You recognize there was a missing planet. How do you still get him? Yeah, that's true. If it's 5 and 6, and he lost 5, then isn't 6 now 5? But they keep calling it Ceti Alpha 6. I was like, the naming doesn't make sense. And it's also, I would have expected the probe from 60 years ago to have indicated that there was a binary system, or that they would have updated the record, even hiding Khan there. The record of Khan being on the planet, I would still think the Enterprise would have updated the record that, hey, binary planet system. How do you then miss that? That I got a problem with. That's a much greater problem to me. It's a suspension of disbelief on the planet exploding. That's me just, and that's also I'm putting in my notes. That's just me being more technical. And it's like, I get it. Science fiction does that. It's just a convenient plot point here. And it could even be that it's not exploded, and this could potentially explain it, but they've not. This could be an explanation, but the explanation is not given, so it's not true. Which is, it didn't necessarily have to explode, but it could have gone into a great period of volcanism that saw it ejecting parts of its mantle and crust, even. It's like something great that still leaves part of it there, but it ejected so much that it destroyed life on its neighbor, on its twin. That I'd be fine. Because I would then also have, yes, there is still a Ceti Alpha 5, it's just smaller, and then there's Ceti Alpha 6, that they've essentially flipped them, because they would have thought that 6 would be the small, 5 larger, 6 smaller. Oh wait, no, 6 would have been even smaller than, okay, so that doesn't explain the numbering. But it's still, if it exists there and just, it has shrunk now, has lost some of its mass, damaging the other planet, that still would explain, you could still say that would do the environmental damage. You wouldn't have a planet missing anymore. But it would solve the whole, no, planet just can't explode. But yeah, the numbering would still be off. This is where we also get the line, Captain Kirk was your host, and he never appreciated the honor fate offered him. And yeah, he is very narcissistic, Khan is. But he could only conquer me by playing at being a god. His Zeus to my Prometheus. He put me here in adamantine change to guard a barren rock. You tried to steal his ship. Ignoring his words, Khan bent down and looked straight into Pavel Chekhov's eyes. Are you his eagle, Mr. Chekhov? Did you come to tear out my entrails? And you tried to murder him. Khan is still ignoring this. What of you, Captain? To Tyrell. Perhaps you are my Chiron. Did you come to take my place in purgatory? I don't know what you mean, Tyrell answered, which kind of makes some sense. I'm not sure if I necessarily, well, I guess in a way, Khan relating himself to Prometheus makes sense. Because he does see himself as a luminary. But it's not necessarily a great parallel, but I can get it. But it's also, I do just want to point out, Prometheus was not punished for bringing fire to humanity. That's not his punishment. The Titans, I should say, the Olympians, weren't happy with him for doing that, but because fire could then be used to burn sacrificial offerings, and they enjoyed the smell of it, it was like, you shouldn't have done that, but you know what? We're liking that, so we're going to let it stand. But then, because the Olympians were constantly like, yes, give us the meat. You can keep the fat. You can keep the skin and such. The entrails, things that are not desirable. That was a problem, and Prometheus loved humanity. He helped make it with his brother. He taught them then. Well, he basically decided we should make up the choice for the Olympians. Which do they want? And he had the humans set up 2 piles. that could serve as offerings. One made up very, very pretty, the other very ugly. The ugly one is what contained all the meat, though. And the pretty contained the things that were undesirable, the various entrails and such. But looking at it, the Olympians, or at least Zeus, decided that's what I want. Which, that Prometheus taught them to trick the Olympians for their benefit, because now the humans had the meat to eat. But it was that actually saw him punished, being chained to the mountain, with every day a crow coming, or eagle, I think. Is that what he... Yeah, his eagle. I think it is technically a crow, but great bird either way. Coming and plucking out his liver, which will always grow back then before it returns the next day. Let me just check. Okay. So now we finally get to Khan asking, "Why are you here?" Because you're not here for us, and this is a lifeless moon, lifeless planet. There is no value here. Why are you here? I need to know. He first asks. He grabbed Chekhov's jaw and brutally forced up his head, so something like that. Then he turns to Terrell, grabs him by the by the throat and jerks him off his feet. Choking, Terrell clawed at Khan's gloved hand. Khan watched, a smile on his face, while the captain slowly and painfully lost consciousness. "It does not please him to answer me," Khan said, his lips curled in a cruelly simple smile. "Well, no matter." He opened his fist, and Terrell's limp body collapsed on the floor. That is a good line. I do like there. I could have stopped reading a little earlier. But because it demonstrates Khan's great strength, that he's able to grab a grown man by the throat and hold him up and choke him, all with one hand. That's impressive. While the dude's also fighting. And then it's like, Terrell is not answering, possibly because he's being choked. And it does not please him to answer me. And it's just like making this all like an insignificant thing. It's like that's the menace that Khan can carry with him. Okay. I'm just checking. Okay. Oh, yes, this would be around... McGivers. That was her name. Lieutenant McGivers. Okay, yeah. I was just reading the chapter here, and it was basically, he at minimum admired her, at most Chekhov had a love for her. And this is, the whole taunting Chekhov while holding the eels, because you want to know how she died. The young eel enters its victim's body, seeks out the brain, and entwines itself around the cerebral cortex. As a side effect, the prey becomes extremely susceptible to suggestion. He came toward Chekhov. "The eel grows, my dear Pavel Chekhov, within the captive's brain. First it causes madness. Then the host becomes paralyzed, unable to move, unable to feel anything but the twisting of the creature within the skull. I learned the progression well. I watched it happen to my wife." He lingered over the description, articulating every word with care and precision, as if he were torturing himself, embracing the agony as a fitting punishment. I would have been good with that being in the movie. I really would have been happy with that there. And then, the whole putting the helmet, it's already in the helmet, he puts the helmet on, both of them, Chekhov and Terrell. And we do shortly after get unreliant. Now Terrell is actually answering and is telling them to beam them all up, including with guests. So, one thing I do want to mention that's, I mean, okay, maybe it's possible, but one very technical thing. The brain has no pain receptors, so you wouldn't necessarily feel the eel as it grows in your skull. There would be other things in the skull that might feel it, though, so there's that. But no, technically the brain has no pain receptors. For anyone wondering that, I don't remember which one, but that's one of those things we know because of a very sick serial murderer that would actually open up people's skulls and talk to them while playing with them, or playing with the brains, and they couldn't feel a thing. Yeah. There's a lot of really sick, twisted medical stuff like that we only know because of people doing things like that. And it's like there's also from the Holocaust. We recovered a bunch of records. My understanding is a lot of science concerning hypothermia, a lot of medicine around hypothermia is because of the very sick, twisted experiments that the Nazis did. But no, the brain thing, and this is actually part of brain surgery today. Knowing that there's no pain receptors, it's because of a serial killer. And yes, it is part of brain surgery because, and I got a funny story that can go along with that, because they remove the cranium, so the top of the skull, and they have you like screwed in so you can't move. And they remove it with you unconscious, but then they wake you up during the actual surgery because that way they can monitor your responses as well. So there was a world-class violinist at one point, I think is one story, that needed to have brain surgery, and when they woke her up, she actually was playing the violin then while they were performing the surgery, which helped because, I mean, obviously that was critical to her. It was greatly important to her. So if that got disrupted, then it's like, okay, what we're doing shouldn't be touching that. If that's fine, we're good. But it's also like, if something is starting to go wrong, it's like, okay, we know that's where that part of the brain is. We're going to work somewhere else. And they do that. But the story that I once heard that did lead to an interesting ethical question. This guy, he had seizures and some other issues. And so what they wanted to do, I don't remember the name of it, but there's basically what a pacemaker is for your heart. Same exact same thing they put into the brain, where it delivers mild electrical shocks, just regularly doing that, and actually solves various problems. It's wild sounding, but it is true. This guy needed it, and he was older, adult children, has grandchildren, things like that. He had signed off on doing the surgery, and they had removed the cranium, all that, and he's now awake and they're able to do this. They hadn't really done too much yet, but then he told them to stop, and the surgeons are like, what do we do? It's like, technically, by the one very strict interpretation, they already had his signature. They could continue if they wanted to, but he literally just revoked permission. What do we do? Can we ask somebody? There are bioethicists and such at various hospitals that will be able to come in and answer the question. But what they ended up doing was nothing. Seal them back up. We'll wait and figure this out later because they couldn't continue. They technically had permission revoked. What happened? What ultimately happened after that was the family got together and the dude also, and the conclusion was this: ignore him next time. He did understand. He had issues not always being lucid, and when he was lucid, he knew the value of the surgery. He wanted it to happen, but he was having those problems that this would help cure. And basically it was happening at that time, and that's why he said no. So even he was like, ignore me next time, whatever I'm saying, go through with this. I genuinely fully want this. So, but it is just, yeah, fun stuff. Oh, and also by the way, mentioning the violinist, I once saw, I've never read the book, but I once heard about a book called Knife Music, written by a surgeon. I think it is a fiction book. But that Knife Music itself is just the colloquial term for surgeons play music while they're operating. It is a very common thing, and it's also one of those things I'm sure there are plenty of other people that play music when they're working because it helps their mind relax and also focus on the same thing for surgeons. So it's also like in the movie Doctor Strange when they are doing the trying to guess what the recording is. That I could believe might be a little much, depending where you're being distracted with the questions, but definitely somebody being there operating some sort of music player, it's like, yeah, that's very reasonable. Okay, so now we are to Earth. Kirk, Bones, Uhura, and Sulu are on a shuttle. Sulu's piloting it to go up from the Earth to the Enterprise. And initially, Kirk is reading his book with spectacles, which even Sulu's like, what are those? I think those are spectacles. Huh. Alright. Bones is writing up something. Some medical reports. And Uhura is on a pocket computer, it says. And she's just like very focused on whatever the program is. And Sulu's like, I kind of want to yell at them, but I won't. Because to him, piloting up and just being able to see all the mountains such around, it's at least he's enjoying it. But after he actually gets high enough up that all that has been lost, Uhura had actually gotten up and was watching with him. He didn't realize, and she did thank him. But then, at that point, he's able to turn on autopilot, and he now just like lounges back in one of the passenger seats to watch, and he and Kirk start talking. And one thing I find funny is they had met somebody, more so Sulu's friend, but Kirk had met her as well. And it was a little funny. Yeah, last name of Flynn. Did we get her first name? I don't remember. But there's a little bit of a joke in here because I asked her what her plans were, and she looked me straight in the eye and said, "Captain, I want your job," to Kirk. And it's like, not exactly good impression, depending on how it's interpreted. It does make the point that Kirk did not take that as a threat at all. But it still was not really the most appropriate thing, because apparently she had been getting like battlefield commission kind of stuff, so she is more of a described here as a Mustang, but yeah, she's a bit different. But more so what I want to mention here is she's gotten her own ship now. The Magellan, which is one of the new Galaxy-class ships, which is smaller than the Enterprise, so Constitution refit, but much faster. They were most efficient around Warp 12. Only 3 existed: the Andromeda, M31, and Magellanic Clouds. So that would be the Magellan. Their purpose was very long-range exploration. Commanding such a mission was the career Mandela Flynn, who had been born and raised in space, had aimed for all her life. So I just find it funny that the Galaxy class is already in existence. Technically, TNG should not have used Galaxy class then as the name for the Enterprise D's class. Yeah. I also like that for another reason, because I once saw something when looking up some of the... This would be Memory Alpha and Memory Beta kind of stuff, so some of it also fan fictions, or at least things that did not necessarily become canon. But somebody envisioned like a universe class as well that would be a future... the Enterprise would be at one point a universe class, but that the Galaxy class, that was built for exploring the galaxy. The universe class is meant to be able to explore the universe. It's like, no, that's not how they're named. Okay, I was like, what's a Constitution class then? It's exploring the Constitution? It's not that big a piece of parchment. But at least this, what they're mentioning here, it being smaller but faster, Warp 12 is not quite correct, because at TNG era on, Warp 10 is considered effectively unlimited speed, so Warp 12 is different scale. But still is. That actually would more so align with that idea of the Galaxy class being to explore the galaxy. It's not quite right, but yeah. But yeah, it's still... It's a Galaxy class, so it's meant to explore the galaxy. It's like, that's not how this naming works. I mean, do you expect then that if somebody's named Smith that they're to just work with metal? It's... Oh, boy. Okay. So now we get to Kirk actually arrives, sees Saavik, who... Saavik is annoyed, and I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed as well. Yeah. He had merely added to her humiliation by rating her well in the series of simulation exams. She believed he should have significantly downgraded her overall score because of her performance on the final test, Kobayashi Maru. It had already been explained to her as a no-win scenario. It wasn't about succeeding there. It was about how you carried yourself during the incident, during the test. Why should she think she did poorly there? I don't feel like that's explained here. I mean, yes, she failed to succeed in the test. That is true. But the test is not one that can truly be failed or truly succeeded. So it's... I'm annoyed by that line because she should know better. Even if she doesn't understand, she should still know better. Because she was told it is a no-win scenario. We do get the line in here, we have been through death and life together. Kirk commenting about her. When Spock's like, I believe you know my trainees. Saavik maintained her composure, but only the techniques of biocontrol that Spock had taught her saved her from a furious blush. She could not make out Kirk's tone at all. He might be attempting humor. For the first 10 years of her life, Saavik had never laughed. I have an issue with this, but moving on. For the first 10 years of her life, she had never seen anyone laugh unless they had caused another person pain. Humor was not Saavik's forte. When very much a child, like infant, they would have been laughing. I'm certain of that. It's part of normal development is laughter. I get basically once fully conscious, and therefore having a sense of humor or lack thereof, being Vulcan and Romulan, that she would not find anything to laugh at. I got that. And it also, she may still have been able to find some things to laugh at, bits of joy during those 10 years. So it's basically just one of those things. It's an oversimplification, and it can get annoying because, we don't need to get into this with Saavik. I know. I'm being overly technical, overly tedious here. But it is still technically true that even in those 10 years, there are probably still some good moments for her. And I want to mention that, I want to say that, at least so that, just like keep in mind that you can have somebody going through hell, metaphorically, but still have some good moments. That those will likely still be there, and maybe find a way to share those to help make that character not just be, man, my life sucked all the time. It's like, well, no, it didn't suck all the time. It sucked, but not all the time. Thinking she may have still had a friend, kind of thing, that they still had some enjoyment together. So, anyway. Saavik is also very analytical, and needs to be to a certain degree, and I've got the thing highlighted here for it. So this is, Kirk has met Spock, and it's, Scotty, and we get the whole, it's like what McCoy had helped him through something. And Saavik is watching this and is confused. Shore leave, Admiral, Mr. Scott said. Ah, Kirk said. His tone indicated comprehension, though in fact his question had not been answered but avoided. Saavik dissected the encounter in her mind and put it back together as best she could. Mr. Scott and Dr. McCoy knew of some event in Mr. Scott's life that the Admiral wished to know, but which Mr. Scott would be embarrassed to reveal. Dr. McCoy agreed, by his silence, to conspire in the concealment. The Admiral, by his tone of understanding, had appeared to accede to their plan, yet put them both on notice that he intended to find out exactly what had happened, but at some more convenient, perhaps more private time. Saavik felt some satisfaction with the intellectual exercise of her analysis. It remained to be seen if it was accurate. I would say it is not accurate because I doubt Kirk will ever ask. I mean, because, like, shore leave. Ah. Kirk has likely had some shore leave to be healed as well by McCoy, so it's likely doesn't need more than that. Unless it is a what's her name? Come on, I want to know. Now we get some more here, and this is. I'll just read it. It connects to the movie very directly, and we're getting a lot more information here. And who is this? Kirk said, stopping in front of the child. Technically, this should be written a little differently, I feel. Just something to. It's just of the child is how it's written there. Something to help emphasize that it's a nickname, essentially, because we're getting Savik's point of view. So it's not just there's a child here, it's the child. Like, putting that in italics, putting it in quotes, something like that, to help continue to convey it is Savik's point of view, and that Peter here is the child. Peter drew himself up so straight and serious that Savik wanted to smile. He was blond and very fair. Under the Admiral's inspection, his face turned bright pink. He was a sweet child, so enthusiastic he practically glowed, so proud to be in space at 14, that he lived with a radiating sphere of joy that could not help but affect those around him, even Savik. But, this is part of inspection, so Kirk is having to talk to them. Oh, and by the way, in the movie, what about the inspection? Like, Kirk doesn't really go through any of it, and it's just later. No, Spock and Savik will leave shortly, and Kirk continues on. But, anyway, so Peter is very responsive to Kirk. And Kirk smiled, came to attention, and saluted in the same style, because Peter saluted at him. If he laughs at Peter, Savik thought, I shall certainly rip out his liver. The civilized part of her, taking over again after the infinitesimal lapse, replied, You most certainly shall not. Besides, do you even know where the liver is in a human? It's about where Vulcan heart is. And then there was just conversation between Kirk and Peter. Yes, like, is this your first training voyage, Mr. Preston? Yes, sir. I see. In that case, I think we should start the inspection with the engine room. Aye, sir. I mean, it's exactly what you'd expect. Now Savik and Spock are going to head off back to the bridge, and they talk a little bit in private in the turbulent. You must remember that as a member of Starfleet, this is Spock talking, you are unlikely ever to escape the presence of humans or their influence. Tolerance is essential. In addition, it is logical. Yes, it is logical for Waste Army Hate, but I do kind of wish it were more specific. Like, is he saying it is logical in that to get the job done, or it is logical because you will learn from them? I'm kind of curious which. But as they continue on, Spock again talking. Even I can only tell you that as a Vulcan and a Romulan in a world of humans, you are forever a stranger. You will have to deal with strangers who may at times seem incomprehensible to you. Which, I'm not the happiest with how that is put there, but yeah, she is in some ways always going to be an outsider, but at the same time that doesn't mean she will always be treated as the outsider. And yeah, so, but that also does mean she might not ever be able to really understand the people around her. That's just how it's going to be. Then I highlight a whole bunch of it because of Peter here, and I like it. I like it. And hang on, is it in this? Okay. It's a little later, so I'll get to it in a moment. Mr. Preston, do you have any idea at all, how often I've had to listen to Mr. Scott tell me that one more warp factor will blow this ship to bits? So this is while at Peter's station, which is like a secondary backup, so it's never used, but he is obsessive over it. Okay. No, sir, Peter said, quite startled. Mr. Preston, do you know how they refer to the Enterprise in the officer's mess? No, sir, Peter said again, and then thought, brilliant line, kid, why don't you use it one more time and make a really good impression? Why, they call it the Flying Death Trap, and they aren't referring to the food. Sir, that's not true. This is the best ship in the whole Starfleet. The Admiral started to smile, and Mr. Scott chuckled. Peter felt the blood rising to his face. Oh no, he thought, I fell for it. Dannon warned me, and I still fell for it. Dannon, his oldest sister, was already a commander. She was 12 years older than he, and he had absorbed her stories practically through his skin since before he could remember. If she saw him now, he knew she would tease him about looking like a ripe tomato. He blushed so hard. That is, if she would ever speak to him once she found out he'd acted like such a dope. There's more to this, but it's just like, this is exactly what we're going through his mind. By the way, 14, he shouldn't be there. That's a separate thing. Continuing. I'm begging the Admiral's pardon, sir, Peter said. But the only person who couldn't see the truth about this ship would have to be as blind as a Tiberian bat, sir. Kirk looked at him for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, spidery little construction of glass and gold wire. He unfolded it, balanced it on his nose, hooked some of the wires around his ears, peered closely through the lenses at the console and over the tops of the lenses at the rest of the engine room, and finally turned to Peter again. By God, you're right, Mr. Preston. It is a good ship. This actually also unnerves him a little bit, because, like, I fell for it. I still fell for it with him. I was like, it is appropriate for Peter to stand up for the ship. He pushed it a little bit, and Kirk is, like, just teasing back. But now I do get a little bit more here. Scotty, your cadet's a tiger. My sister's youngest, Admiral. Oh no, Peter thought. Why did he have to tell the Admiral he's my uncle? Peter himself had told no one in the training group, and he had hoped that neither had Uncle Montgomery. Peter valued his uncle's advice and love, and even his occasional crotchetiness, but things would have been easier, clearer somehow, if he were training under someone unrelated to him. I mean, at this point, it shouldn't be a problem. I could understand some people teasing him, but it would probably be a, dude, you've already proved yourself to us. Yeah, we're gonna tease you, but we're gonna take you seriously. There's no issue that you're related. But still, because of this, he's been teased and he wants to do something to stand up for himself. Yeah, Peter ducked out of line, sprinted to the tool bay, rummaged around in his bin for a moment, and hurried to his place again. One of the other trainees is like, "What are you doing? We haven't been dismissed yet." It's like, "You'll see." Because Kirk finished inspecting, and McCoy is with him along with Scotty. And then they come back, and arriving back to where Peter is, he gives him a hard. The cadet saluted hard. Kirk stopped. "Yes, Mr. Preston?" Peter offered him a complicated instrument. "I believe the Admiral asked for this." Kirk inspected it. "What is it, Mr. Preston?" "Why, sir, it's a left-handed spanner, of course." Mr. Scott looked completely and utterly shocked. The Admiral's mouth twitched. Dr. McCoy choked down his smile, then gave up and started to laugh. After a moment, Kirk followed suit. Mr. Scott managed nothing better than a stiff, grim smile. Peter watched them with his best total innocent look. "Mr. Scott, I think we'd better get these kids on their training cruise before they take over completely. Are the engines up to a little trip?" It's like, yeah, but as the turbo lift doors slid closed, Jim Kirk collapsed into laughter again. "Do you believe it, Bones?" He was laughing so hard he had to pause between every phrase. God, what a terrific kid. A left-handed spanner. I deserved that one, didn't I? I forgot how much I hated being teased when I was his age. Yeah. Okay. And it is actually, Bones teases him because, like, yeah, back in prehistory, it's like, it's not funny. So he's laughing, then nope, not funny anymore. Man, these are alt command line. I got a lot to talk about. I like these. I legitimately, a lot of this interpersonal stuff, I'm really, really liking. It's very well written. And it does, I feel, give a good sense of the characters as well. Maybe Kirk is a bit too humorous. Well, no. Not humorous. He is not funny. But that perhaps too given to laughter, especially for this. But it's like, it is getting to the point there of Peter just stood up for himself in a very effective manner, because it was not disrespectful, but it was just basically turning a joke back. And it worked very well. And Kirk he's laughing because it's like, I had it coming. And yeah, that is good. I do approve of that. That is fine. But it's still maybe not, he gets into a triple lift and collapses into laughter again. Maybe we don't need to go that far with it. Yeah. At least it wasn't a self-sealing stem bolt. That's more sort of a running gag in Deep Space Nine. So now Kirk and Bones are on the bridge. And Spock is in the captain's chair, and a point is even made, and thank you for this. Spock is Captain Spock. He's in charge of the ship. And even though Admiral Kirk is there, Spock does not offer him the chair, which is correct, because he's the captain, the Admiral. This is either his flagship or he's just an observer. Either way, he's not the captain. Spock is. Spock shouldn't move. And there's even a point. Yeah, to do so would be improper. Heaven forbid that Spock might do anything improper. Kirk gets up there and realizes, all right, there's Sulu at the helm. Why is Saavik there? I guess she's getting some more experience piloting. All right, that's fine. But now Spock is going to have some fun teasing Kirk. Thank you, Lieutenant, after moorings have been cleared. Lieutenant Saavik, Spock said, how many times have you piloted a starship out of space dock? 193, sir, Saavik said promptly, and then added, in simulation. Kirk absolutely froze. In real-world circumstances, Saavik said, never. McCoy got the distinct impression that Jim Kirk simultaneously thought of two possible courses of action. The first was to pitch Spock out of the captain's seat and order Mr. Sulu to take the helm. The second was to do nothing. He chose the latter, but it was a close to photo finish. I don't like that. It's a bit much. I mean, him thinking about, no, Spock, I'd rather that somebody be experienced to pilot the ship. That's one thing, but to say he was about even with doing that or just letting this carry on, But we also get McCoy's thinking on this. You damned leprechaun. McCoy directed the delighted thought at Spock. Vulcan discipline indeed. Let me try reading that again. I know I screwed up. You damned leprechaun, McCoy directed the delighted thought at Spock. Vulcan discipline indeed. Deliberately avoiding a look at Kirk, pretending ignorance of the Admiral's discomfort, Spock glanced at McCoy and with a very slight smile. For the Vulcan, that was almost as extreme a reaction as Jim's fit of laughter in the turbolift was for Kirk. Take us out, Lieutenant Saavik, Spock said. And she does. We do also get McCoy offering Kirk a tranquilizer, which in the movie I never quite understood. I always interpreted that more as just he is so excited about leaving on the ship that it's just, that's why. Not a, we have children piloting the ship. I am like, white knuckled. Oh my God, are we about to die? I never thought of it that way, but apparently that's what was meant here. But then we do get, after they're out, course, Captain? Saavik asked. At your discretion, Captain, because Spock looked to him. Spock got that expression again, and McCoy's suspicion that the Vulcan was as concerned about Kirk as he was intensified. I skipped over while in the turbo lift, McCoy was trying to get at what Kirk's problem is, which is basically he's feeling old. Out there, Lieutenant Saavik, this is Spock talking. Kirk started. Sir? Saavik glanced back. Out there was something Jim Kirk had said the last time the Enterprise was under his command. That is how Motion Picture ended. I believe the technical term is that-a-way, Spock said. Aye, sir, Saavik said, obviously not understanding. But McCoy could see that Jim understood. I need to correct a small highlight here, but yeah, I'm... Oh, come on. Yep. Okay. So yeah, it just we get some more with Peter. It looked like I saw a little bit of the start of chapter 4. Um, but yeah, so I like that. Especially Spock is also teasing him some. Um, I do wish it was a bit clearer what makes him so what is really getting at Kirk, because the talk of his age has already come up. So it's like, what is the actual core of it? And I'm looking forward to finding that, in part because Bones getting it makes sense. He's human and potentially a little older. Spock, what is he picking up on is what I'm kind of curious about, and why I'd like to know more clearly, more certainly, what it is. But it is also that teasing about out there. It's like, sir, it's like that. Yeah, I mean, it is just about the exploration. It's just about the adventure, and Spock is trying to remind Kirk about that in a way. But also, I do love the whole. I believe the technical term is that away. That's a good one, Spock. That's a good one. He's like, yeah, that's not going to help Savick at all, but just the go. I mean, yeah. So yes, I am definitely enjoying this chapter as well. It is very, very well written. A hell of a lot better than the motion picture was. We're getting far better interpersonal stuff with them, and yeah. I don't have much in the way of any technical complaints for the interpersonal stuff. I already gave some of the issues I'm having with it that I found, but yeah, it is a much more satisfying read. Yeah, looking forward to the next chapter. See you then.